Welcome to Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Some people believe that the barbed wire fence of Chernobyl zone protects them from the dead and deserted radioactive land. In fact, this is the place where you can see unique technological sites next to the wild nature and folk culture. Actually, the zone is a huge laboratory where lots of things have been done for the first time in the history of mankind. The zone covers a territory of more than 2,600 square kilometers, where 96 evacuated villages, towns, and cities are situated. In terms of radiation safety, they distinguish three zones. External or buffer 30-kilometer area. Internal, more polluted 10-kilometer area. And a livable area, where the Chernobyl personnel lives. Despite of the stereotype, the zone is not a circle, but it is of irregular shape, basically due to changes of wind direction, which was spreading the radioactive fallout in 1986, and which is pretty much expanded westward. The Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant was the first one in Ukraine. In 1967, after scrutinizing 16 different options, they made a decision to place the plant on the banks of the Pripyat River, 12 kilometers away from the Chernobyl town. It was this ancient town that gave its name to the nuclear power plant. Each block of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was based on the uranium graphite reactor RBKM 1000. This is a single contour reactor, which means that the water circulating in the active reactor's zone evaporates and turns the turbo generator's rotors. In 1986, 4 blocks were in operation, and by that time they have already generated in total over 150 billion kilowatt-hour. Another 2 blocks were still under construction. Accident of 1986. On April 26, 1986, the biggest accident in the mankind's history had happened at Block 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It happened during an experiment which was intended to test a possible cooling method in an emergency situation. A heat explosion, which destroyed the reactor and most part of the power module, had resulted in huge fire and significant emission of radioactive particles into atmosphere. After enormous efforts were spent on decontamination and repair, the power plant resumed its operation. The first block was recommissioned in October 1986. The second, in November the same year. And the third block, only in December 1987, after it was disconnected from the systems connected to reactor number 4. This block was in operation until 2000, and it was the last decommissioned block. In this video, we will see the tour inside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. After all security checkups had finished, the tour starts from going into underground bunker. A government representative from Chernobyl nuclear power plant will act as a tour guide inside the plant. External tour agency guides are not allowed inside the plant. This is the generator room, with 2 full tanks of fuel. One is on the top right corner of the room, and the other is in the underground. In case of any emergencies, breakout or fire, this bunker will be used, which has all necessary equipment and facilities for up to 750 people to survive for 2 days. These are additional special doors to protect the people from radiation.
So when people will come, they have to check themselves using this radiation monitoring equipment. During our visit, you will see and you will be monitored also with this monitoring equipment. If some contamination is detected, people should go to the restroom, wash their hands, or take even shower and but wash hands with cold water.
Just with cold water?
Cold water, because hot water will open your pores.
Ah, yeah, that's
and
right.
radiation can get inside.
Yes.
This is for beta particles, for skin, for clothes. You could see the threshold, so the limit, the maximum limit.
100.
Of this contamination.
Okay.
Also, we have measuring devices for alpha, additional for alpha particles. Here you can see the current radiation dose here, 0.2 microns.
In this room?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Detector.
Ah, yeah, okay.
This is the first aid room for any medical emergencies. This is the room for technical people and engineers. This is the ventilation chamber, which uses carbon filters to provide clean air inside the bunker for 2 to 3 days, in case of air outside is contaminated. There are 2 emergency exit doors in the further end of this room, which leads to a staircase to go outside. The tiles on the floor are laid during the initial construction. They are still intact. These beds are provided for 750 people to sit down during the time in here. Even though it seems like there are lots of beds here, there will not be enough place for 750 people to lie down and sleep on the beds. This room is for storing technical water, which will be used only for toilet or cleaning, but not for drinking purposes. Drinkable water is stored in separate containers in another room. We are now entering into the boardroom, where the top management and officials meet and take decisions during crucial time. There is a room here with technical facilities which connects directly to Moscow City and Kiev City. Here, you are seeing different kinds of dosimeters, which were used during 1986 to measure the level of radiation. Now, it's time for tourists to get their specialist clothing and personal protective equipment provided by the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Tourists will be given separate lockers to leave their own bags, clothes, and shoes. We are now going on the Golden Corridor, which is the beginning of our route to the nuclear plant. Staff currently working now in the plant are using this corridor to get to their working places. On the left side of the corridor are control rooms of the units and turbine hall. On the right side of the corridor, there are reactors. The walls of this corridors were contaminated very much after the accident, so the old layers were taken down and replaced with new concrete and cladding. And on top of it, the golden aluminium sheets were fitted to stop spreading the contamination and to reducing the exposure to ionizing radiation. We are now walking 9 meters above the ground level. Closing the 3 units of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant not damaged in the 1986 accident, and still operating afterwards, was an urgent priority for the international community in the 1990s. Once the decision to close the units had been taken, their decommissioning became an important element of the international support efforts for Ukraine. As with most nuclear plants in the former Soviet Union, there were serious shortcomings in the technical and financial provisions for the decommissioning process, and an urgent need for investment in the site's infrastructure. Assistance initially focused on urgent safety and security upgrades of Unit 3, which was the last operating reactor and shut down only in 2000. Later, the main task became the safe decommissioning of all 3 reactor units at Chernobyl. This is the control room of Unit Number 1. This unit's construction work started in 1971 and started its operation in 1977. It took 6 years to finish the construction of this unit. Here are no employees working in Unit 1 now.
Are there still some people working
No.
in this?
Pretty close.
We are not producing electricity
Yes.
anymore since 2000.
Yeah.
We now at the decommissioning process. And the decommissioning process, according to our national program, will end 2064.
2064.
So this is the measuring device, which I told you in the nuclear. Green light and, and red light. You can, for example, measure, and if some contamination will be, red light will be on, and of course some decontamination activities should be made. For example, to change clothes or to wash hands. The limits here, 700 beta particles cubic centimeter per minute.
Per minute, yeah. Okay.
We have now reached Central Control Room. In here, employees of Electrical Department and Main Operations are working on 12-hour shift, 24 hours a day.
This is one of few rooms where our operating personnel is working.
Behind you, you may notice designated smoking sign in this room, only for operating personnel.
Oh, okay. But we don't smoke, so everything is fine. Okay. Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Please don't feel till this.
We were not allowed to take photos or videos in certain areas inside the plant.
For unit number 2.
Reactor number 2 was permanently shut down shortly after October 1991, when a fire broke out due to a faulty switch in a turbine. On the 11th of October 1991, a fire broke out in the turbine hall of Reactor number 2. The fire began in Reactor number 2's fourth turbine, while the turbine was being idled for repairs. A faulty switch caused a surge of current to the generator, igniting insulating material on some electrical wiring. This subsequently led to hydrogen, used as a coolant in the synchronous generator, being leaked into the turbine hall, which apparently created the conditions for fire to start in the roof and for one of the trusses supporting the roof to collapse. The adjacent reactor hall and reactor were unaffected, but due to the political climate, it was decided to shut down this reactor permanently after this incident.
A lot of money
Yeah.
had to be spent.
Yeah.
And as the lifetime of the unit number 2 was coming to an end, government at the time decided not to spend a lot of money. No sense.
Close it earlier.
No, yes, just close it and that's all.
Mm-hmm.
While some decommissioning infrastructure projects have been funded through bilateral aid, 2 key Chernobyl facilities are being financed by the EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Managed Nuclear Safety Account, NSA. The Interim Spent Fuel Storage Facility 2, ISF2, currently in the final phase of commissioning, will process, dry and cut more than 21,000 fuel assemblies from the Chernobyl units 1 to 3, which will then be placed in double-walled canisters and stored in concrete modules on site. The spent fuel will be stored safely and securely, for a minimum period of 100 years. Once all fuel has been transferred to the new ISF2 facility, the existing fuel storage facilities can be decommissioned. This will represent a major step forward in increasing nuclear safety at the site. The Liquid Radioactive Waste Treatment Plant, LRTP, retrieves highly active liquids from their current storage tanks, processes them into a solid state and moves them into containers for long-term storage. The plant is complete and fully operational. To date, the NSA has committed €280 million, provided by 18 donors, to decommissioning and safety projects in Chernobyl. In addition, the EBRD has provided €235 million to support the construction of the ISF2. Next, we will see the unique Soviet analog computer Scalar. A unique electronic computing machine which appeared in 1973 at the Leningrad Nuclear Power Plant, and was named Scalar, Reactor Monitoring System of Leningrad Nuclear Power Plant.
This is a Scalar system, computer system Scalar. In Russian Scalar, abbreviation Scalar, we translate into English, it means control system for Leningrad Nuclear Power Plant reactor.
Subsequently, it was also installed at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. It was the central information link, which united most of the control systems of the power unit into a single automated monitoring system for technological process of nuclear power plant. We are now at the control room of Unit 3.
81 and was shut down in December 2000, and it was broadcasted different international and broadcasting companies. So the process was just to switch off the AZ5 key. Previously it was red button AZ5. After the accident it was replaced for this key.
Hope it's not working now.
Not working, yes. Just you may try.
The third reactor was shut down after operating briefly since March 1999, following 5 months of repairs, and the plant as a whole ceased producing electricity.
That room, all equipment was removed, all dirty and so on. So you can just imagine that the same identical rooms. Working place, another one, third, and their boss, chief, unit chief supervisor.
Okay.
So during the experiment at unit number 4, there were 11 people. Because there were experiments, subcontracting supervisors were, and so on. Totally 11. But at nominal operation, it's normal operation, 4 persons control the reactor, the whole reactor.
We are now going to Unit 4's control room. The control room, which was highly damaged from the explosion, was where the reactor was operated from and where many of the decisions, the day the reactor exploded, were made. It sits under the new containment arch but outside of the original sarcophagus that contained the radiation of the reactor itself. We are not allowed to stay here more than 5 minutes, due to the nature of radiation. Originally, it was said to be 40,000 times high radiation here than the normal levels. But, when we were there, our dosimeters were reading around 25 microsieverts per hour, which was a lot less than some places in Pripyat ghost town we visited earlier.
How to switch it off?
Sorry?
How to switch it off?
Micro.
No, how to switch off?
Oh, not that.
Switch off?
It sounds.
Yeah. Some level of radiation. No,
24.
up to 30 microsieverts per hour. 25 up to 30. How to switch off? I don't know. We don't use such kind of dosimeters.
The accident occurred during a safety test on the steam turbine of an RBMK-type nuclear reactor. During a planned decrease of reactor power in preparation for the test, the power output unexpectedly dropped to near zero. The operators in this control room were unable to restore the power level specified by the test program, which put the reactor in an unstable condition. This risk was not made evident in the operating instructions, so the operators proceeded with the test. Upon test completion, the operators triggered a reactor shutdown. But a combination of operator negligence and critical design flaws had made the reactor primed to explode. Instead of shutting down, an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction began, releasing enormous amounts of energy.
Source, the modules you will take, yes? Also, the time, how much long you will be near the source, yes? And of course barrier, for example here we have additional barrier, also some walls, new safe confinement, additional barrier. Wind or some atmospheric conditions could not penetrate inside already, so we just protect ourselves and environment from the idea. The original wall is here.
Ah, really?
Yes, this original wall. Of course, after the accident, a part of Unit 4 was reconstructed. Some corridors were made. For example, like this one, it became corridor.
This is the monument for Valery Kodemchuk, who was the first person to die in this nuclear disaster, as it is thought he was killed instantly when the number 4 reactor exploded. His body was never found, and it is presumed that he is entombed under the remains of the circulation pumps. So, this monument was built into the side of sarcophagus interior dividing wall to the east of the pump hall. This is the Unit 3's main circulation pumps, MCP, used for water supply to the reactor core.
This is electrical motor.
Electrical motor?
Yes,
Water?
Water was down.
Okay,
so
okay.
16 meters height.
We are now at the reactor hall of Unit 3. This is the kind of reactor hall which was exploded during the accident in Unit 4. The Chernobyl plant was a high-power channel-type reactor, RBMK, that used water to both cool the core and generate steam for its reactions. Crucially, most of Chernobyl's control rods were made of boron tipped with graphite. The control rods slipped into the reactor to slow reactivity. The boron slowed the reactions down, but the graphite tips initially increased the rate of fission. It is commonly believed that this was a design flaw, was one of the main factors that caused the explosion. At the press of the emergency button in the control room, the graphite-tipped control rods plunged into the coolant water. Though the boron in the rods was meant to slow the reaction down, the graphite tips briefly increased fission in the core. The initial reaction was so powerful that it cracked the control rods, jamming them a third of the way into their journey burying the reactive graphite tips into the coolant water. The reactor created more steam than it could vent, the fission reactions churned on, and the pressure from the steam exploded, rupturing fuel lines and exploding out the roof of the reactor. Seconds later, a second explosion spewed hunks of graphite into the surrounding area and began to spread radiation. Chernobyl was on fire.
Was prepared in time, but these fuel-containing masses stopped themselves. So this foundation was never in use. It is still there, but never used. Yeah, this is main circulation pumps.
Yeah.
We saw them today.
3 per side, yeah. Or 4?
Four
4 per side, yeah.
Yes.
4 per side, yeah.
Three in operation, three in
Yeah.
operation. Drum separators, which separated steam from water. Steam went to the turbine involved. This is a refueling machine, a part of a refueling machine. 460 tons. Just piece of this machine stuck in the wall.
And this one is a new wall.
No, this is not wall. This is diaerator stack. Diaerator stack. Diaerators, such devices which remove bubbles from the water.
We have now reached the end of our tour at Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Thanks for watching.